Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of In the Pit with Lobo Tigre. Our victim of the day is Joe Mullin. He's the CEO of Colorado Resources, a Golden Triangle explorer, an area that's hot and a lot of people are curious about today. So, Joe, why don't you go ahead and give us an overview about what you're doing, what you're working on, and then I've got some questions for you.
Lobo, thank you very much for having me today. Colorado Resources is a junior exploration company. We have 6 properties that are all located in northern British Columbia. We have 211 million shares outstanding. We're listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange, CXO.V, under the ticker CXO. I joined Colorado in August, and our main focus is a property called the Castle, which is in the area called the Golden Triangle, that's in the Red Crest district near Iskut Village. We have 5 other main properties, including the North Rock Coyote property that's also in that same district, the Red Crest district. We have a property called KSP, which is down by the Snip mine, farther to the south. Directly to the south of the KSP property, we have a property called, that whole property then extends down to almost as far as the Grand Duke mine. We have a property called Sophia, which is in Trudon. And finally, we have a property called Heart Peaks. That's farther north in the Thorn district. We're based in Vancouver, BC. And we have a new team of geologists that's led by David Fleming. We also have Stephen Kramer on that team, as well as Jason Wilson. We recently had a new CFO join us, whose name is Tim Thiessen.
Any relation to Ron?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. Well, that's a good overview. Admirably succinct there, and it's interesting. Before we get into more specifics, it's I looked at the stock chart and I remember, I think, hearing about rock as it was drilled off before, and there's a big copper gold low grade bulk tonnage deposit there. So I kind of thought that's what the focus would be, but you're saying that the Castle property is really the focus. So I guess before you talk about what you're doing now, could you run me through a little bit of the history? I assume it was rock that took this stock to over $1, 10 years ago. So if that's the case, what's different now, and why the shift to Castle?
Sure. So the company in 2013 had very good drill results at North Rock on the Maybon resource. I think that first drill hole was 242 meters at something like, I think it was 0.63% copper, 0.85 grams per ton of gold, and that really that discovery really put Colorado on the map. I think that that was then followed on by a inferred resource that came out in 2014. That inferred resource was low grade resource. It came out to about 2.2 million ounces of gold equivalent, about 1.2 million ounces of gold. But the grade was probably something around 0.2% copper and 0.26 grams per ton of gold. So it wasn't a high grade resource by any stretch of the imagination. And then the following drill results were in line and supported that additional resource. So that resource was based on 18 drill holes out of 29 that have been drilled. So additional drill holes were drilled in 2014 and 2017 on that resource. Ultimately, the company didn't receive the support from the local community in terms of continuing that exploration. So the market right now is much more focused on the prospectivity of the Castle property. That Castle property is, it adjoins the GT Gold Saddle discoveries of Saddle North and Saddle South. And there has been a lot of excitement about our having the property that's adjoining it. It's also north of GJ. There was earlier this year, a transaction was announced on GJ. And so a lot of the excitement on the part of our shareholders that helped our raise last August and also our raise just now in March is driven off of that prospectivity of the Castle property. And we did some drilling on that, I guess I'd call it preliminary drilling this past summer. And we plan to do more exploration on that property this summer, not necessarily drilling, but some additional field work focused on defining additional targets on that property.
Was it Castle that brought you on board? Because you're new with the company, and actually, I guess much of the company is actually a new team here. And is Castle really what's got you excited, or what brought you in?
It is. So I joined, I had been part of a company called Buckingham Copper. I was initially a director and eventually the CEO of that company. Buckingham Copper had some claims in between the Castle property and GT Gold's Saddle property. And those claims are called the moat. They have now been added to the Castle property, and under there's an option agreement on that. So that I was part of that transaction. I was excited about helping to relaunch the company, and excited about being part of a new team. A lot of it was the excitement around being able to put money to work and field work on the Castle property in particular.
Okay. Before we dig into that, I have to ask, the Tahltan are known to be pretty savvy. They understand mining. Other companies have, very high profile companies, you and I both know well, have worked with them. So with new management, without throwing anybody under the bus, can you give us some color? Is there a chance that North Rock can come back if you guys can work out a new deal with them?
That's definitely a dialogue that I would like to have and am trying to have. But I certainly want to manage everyone's expectations around the fact that, we have, heard a sort of, let's call it a clear no in terms of doing exploration on the property, at least for now. It's on the one hand, part of the property to the south is actually very close to the Red Chris mine. And some of the claims are actually on the Red Chris mine side of the road. We hope that there'll be, they'll consider our potentially doing exploration at some point on in particular those claims to the south that are part of a property that was originally called Rock Coyote. The Maybon resource to the north, where we have done some of our initial drilling, that is close to the village, and we understand those concerns. But as long as I'm CEO, we're not going to do anything without the consent and support of Tahltan central government and the village of Iskut as well.
Sure. Well, you get kudos at least for being very blunt about that and forthright about that no. So okay.
Yeah.
Shifting back to Castle, then, are you looking for another big bulk copper gold system, which your neighbors on the GT side have one of those, but they also have this high grade system too? What kind of targets are you looking for at Castle?
It is, copper gold porphyry country. On our drilling this past summer, we had, we did hit some mineralization on 3 of our 4 drill holes. The, drill results on our first hole were, it looks like we're around some sort of a system. It's unclear if we're on the edge of it or if we're too high. So definitely that Castle East target definitely would warrant a closer look. That there's a whole 6-kilometer alteration zone that goes from Castle East, where we drilled this past summer, all the way back to the main castle zone. We call that whole 6-kilometer alteration zone CAZ, or the Castle Alteration Zone. Over on the west side, you had some drilling that was done by West Cirque, which then became Kaizen, and that was funded by Freeport. Most of that drilling was in, I believe it was 2012, 2013. So, there are a lot of there's a lot of prospectivity and a lot of things to look at. We've been excited to have a new team that's able to, start to, look at some of the work that's been done and come up with some additional targets.
Okay, so
Yeah.
smoke but no fire yet, and hence the geophysics. As I understood the work plan for 2020, there wasn't a mention of drilling, just surface work, and so the idea is to better refine your targets?
That's right. That's right. And, to be perfectly honest, that was driven somewhat by where we were, as a result of last season. We drilled fairly late in the season, and we didn't have the time to do that additional field work that we're planning on doing now. Also, with a depressed stock price, small market cap, we were fortunate to be able to raise some money this spring, but not enough to do a robust drill program. So we're continuing to develop targets and hope to be in a better position at some point. Definitely next year, but perhaps even later this year to do some drilling. But right now, we don't have any plans to do any drilling.
Yeah, I thought about that when I saw the financing, 1.6 million. It's a significant amount to keep going, to not just keep the lights on, but to do some work, but not really for a comprehensive drill program. So, apart from gold going crazy here, what are the deliverables that your company could bring to the market with that 1.6 million? What's the hope for a shareholder today to say, okay, if I buy in this now, I'm not going to get diluted to heck when the next round comes. What's the hope for a higher share price that you can deliver?
Yeah. So, we can deliver more attractive targets as a result of the field work that we're doing this summer. We're also in the very fortunate position of having 6 major properties, and that allows us to potentially sell one of the properties or do something strategic, whether it's an earn-in on one of the properties, right? So if we were to be able to sell a property, we would then have more cash that would allow us to do exploration on a remaining property. All of that is, something that could happen, but that we certainly can't count on. I also mentioned earn-ins. Earn-ins are, harder to do in this environment than they were, say, 3 or 4 months ago. So, we are pursuing those types of things as well. So, there's the potential for, I'd call it more corporate developments in terms of, deals. And then there's also results from potential results from exploration as well.
Okay. I know you couldn't discuss it if you had any CAs with anybody, but I'd have to. It's interesting to me that even though North Rock is low-grade bulk tonnage, it actually has a better gold to copper mix than Red Chris does. You know, they have a higher copper component, but copper is hurting right now. And so I would have to wonder if your neighbors might be interested in or thinking about, you know, more gold rich in that direction towards you. But you couldn't answer that if it was happening. So moving right along.
That's right. Yeah, but I mean, I think you have a good point. It's there's clearly a lot of valuable ore there, and it's close to a major mine. So
well, I'd have to push back on valuable.
I don't also want to minimize any of the negatives and any of the challenges with that particular resource.
I understand. Okay, so potentially, if the geophysics you're planning at Castle, you know, if it lights up and if it corresponds to past drill results in some way, and let's say this is tough because gold is, you know, doing really well as you and I speak, so it may help you, but let's just assume that gold doesn't do anything until later, and it's up to you and it's up to the results that you get. Would you have enough money to do a follow-up drill program after that geophysics? You know, if something really lit up, right, and you got excited and you said, now we figured out we know where to drill, would you be able to do that before having to go back to the market?
Right now, we would need to go back to the market before we did any drilling. You know, I suppose that we could do, you know, if we really had to, we could, and we're forced to, we could do 1 or 2 drill holes. But we really would need to go back to the market before we could do, you know, anything that, you know, this technical team and that the board and I would be comfortable doing in terms of.
That'd be pretty high risk to put all your eggs in 1 or 2 drill holes as a basket.
Yeah.
I understand.
So I think, you know, we'd want to do, you know, over 5 drill holes in a more robust program.
Okay. So Castle is the number 1 priority, but you have all those other properties too, and it is in the plan to do some exploration there. After Castle, what's your thing you're most excited about?
My technical team is very excited about the Sophia property, which is in the Tutagon. That's also a property that's on the edge of the Tahltan territory. We also have the KSP property, which is south of Snep. There's a TAMI zone there that some exploration was done on in 2018. And we released drill results both in 2018 and 2019 because some of the core had been at the lab for a while. That is actually the property that the Goldcorp, now Newmont, original investment was focused on funding. I think about $16 million of work has gone into that property. It's a very large property, and it extends down to another property called Kingpins, which we also have the mineral tenure on, and that's almost 50 kilometers from end to end. We aren't planning on doing any work on our Heart Peaks property this year. That might be a property that we could do a transaction on, but there's certainly nothing in the works on that. So a lot of this is getting a handle on what's a very attractive property package in a even despite the price of gold, a not so attractive environment for the junior exploration sector.
Sure. All right. I noticed the Newmont Goldcorp. Is anybody going to say Newmont Goldcorp? I don't think so.
I think they changed the name now just to Newmont.
Oh, good.
So, yeah.
Make life simpler for us all.
I was in their office recently, and the Goldcorp was no longer on the logo. So
yeah, very good. All right. So I was wondering, did they have a top-up right in their position, and did they elect to participate in the last financing to top up?
That's a great question. They did have a top-up right, and in the past financing, they did exercise that right. So on a partially diluted basis, they're now up to their that 19.9% threshold.
It's only a great question because you like the answer, but I'll give you that one.
Yeah, and we're appreciative of their support. I think that part of their interest in Colorado today goes back to the Castle property and the fact that that is next to GT Gold. They have a major position in GT Gold and have been very active shareholders there as well. So I think that if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be getting that same sort of interest and support.
Yeah, well, that is interesting. If nothing else, it is a vote of confidence, because if they thought everything you had was a dud, they wouldn't have topped up, so not bad.
Yeah, and they did so in a challenging environment. So we closed on March 31st, and they stuck to the terms that they had agreed to, prior to the pandemic really wreaking havoc in the markets. So we're very appreciative of that.
Okay, all right. Well, I get it. Some unfortunate turns in the past. New management focused on this project, and you have a theory. You have money to go at it a bit this summer and see if you can define some exciting targets. So early stage, but exciting. I have to ask you the question I always ask everybody, and that is, if you're going to tell investors that they should put their own hard-earned money into your stock, I have to ask you, how much of your own money have you put into the stock? How much skin do you have in the game?
That's a great question. So I own about 1.6 million shares. I also, through a family company, bought another 550,000 shares. And I participated, all of that was in the past year that I bought. I participated in various financings of the company. I also own some shares in Buckingham Copper. My cost last year was 10 cents, 8.5 cents. I participated in this most recent financing that was that we did at 6 cents. And the stock's now trading at 4.5, 4 cents. I did do some open market purchases as well. That was the 550,000 that I mentioned that I own through a company. So not only have I been buying shares, but I have been participating in financing, and I've done so in the past 6 weeks.
Okay, very good. The key word there is bought, not given. So
yes.
I'll salute you for that. Okay, well, I get it. Please keep me posted. Let me know how the exploration goes. I'll be curious to see how it comes out. And thank you. This is a tough market, and I asked you some tough questions, and I appreciate you being a good sport about it.
Of course. No, thank you very much, Lobo. I appreciate your taking the time to talk to us about Colorado.
Okay.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank you.